It was not so difficult to find a topic because in the popular press, but also even among academics, policymakers, people working in the financial sector, there came this general idea that if women had run the sector, we would not have had this financial crisis. And as a feminist, I had a double feeling about this. On the one hand, it's wonderful if people finally think that women contribute better than men. On the other hand, I find it tricky. It's like turning women into kind of saints. And I don't believe in that. So the idea came testing the hypothesis. The obvious good answer of scientific research is yes and no. Yeah? So it's yes and no. No in the sense that quite a lot of women who work in the financial sector simply behave like men. So in that sense the answer is no. They're just tough, they're profit oriented, they're short-term oriented, they want to make big money and drive a big car. On the other hand, we know from all kinds of literature in sociology, in philosophy, in management, that women have a different style of management. Women are more communicative, more looking towards the long run, are more open to all kinds of social processes going on, whereas men tend to be more focused and more short-term oriented. And so we looked into that literature and then found very interesting things. A major thing is that women take less risk than men in many areas of life, but particularly in finance. Now, in a stable financial market, when you take less risk, you generally make less profit. So women would do worse than men. But in a non-stable market, and many financial markets are non-stable, they go like this. Women perform better because in an environment of instability of financial markets, taking less risk actually leads to higher net profit. So the major explanation why there are so few women at the top in any sector is the glass ceiling explanation. It's for women not so difficult to enter an organization, but it's difficult to raise to the top. And we see that even more so in finance than in other sectors. Data of international research across all kinds of sectors show that about 6% of the chief executive officers in any sector on average is women, 6%. But in the financial sector only 2%. It's a big difference, it's 3 times less. And the reason why is a combination of explanations of first the old boys network. Men like to hire people who are similar like them. That's why it's not only few women that are hired, but also few people from ethnic minorities, for example. But it's the old boys network that functions everywhere in a way that you like to hire people like yourself. And then you kind of define like yourself in terms of male and white and similar age. Plus the financial sector deals with a lot of money. So the question of trust comes in. More than if you work, for example, in the pharmaceutical industry or another industry. So if you trade with money, it's huge amounts. So trust comes in addition to we like to hire somebody like us. Nowadays we like to hire somebody we can trust. And well, somebody you trust is also somebody who looks more like you, who feels more like you. So the glass ceiling argument is kind of double in the financial sector. I included an interview that I did with 2 high-ranked financial managers in a top 3 bank in the Netherlands. A big bank that's also active in Argentina, Rabobank. It's basically an agricultural bank, cooperative bank. And 2 men, so no women involved, 2 men invented a new financial product that had this kind of feminine style, if you want to see it in that way. But we prefer to give not that label of feminine or masculine, but give it a label from a moral perspective. It has a caring style. And caring means looking at other impacts than just a direct impact on profit. And looking at the longer term effects rather than only short term effects. So these 2 men developed a financial product in a kind of caring way. And that is for us also an example of showing that you can do finance in a different way that stabilizes market. And whether you label that feminine or caring or whatever, that is actually not so much the point. We show that it can be done differently and it is being done differently. And you find it a little bit more in women than in men. The conclusion is to have a more mix in financial decision making, a mix by males and females, because then you have more perspectives on financial decisions of investment, for example. And this mix could actually be extended because people also behave differently according to their age. Older people take different decisions than younger people based on their experience. You may even think about a mix in terms of ethnic background, geographical background. So the conclusion is a mix is better, and since we focus on gender issues, indeed a male-female mix is what we advise. What I, as an economist with a wider perspective than simply focus on business performance and profit, I look at the economy as a social construct, and I look at the mixture of culture with economy and politics. I've seen over these years, unfortunately, some increases in inequality. I've seen more poverty, and particularly after the financial crisis in 2001. But what I've seen the last few times that I came here is that there is a recovery of the economy. And I find that very encouraging, that this country has the strength to survive deep crisis, to come back from it, and also not only to come back from it in nice growth figures in investment or in exports or in GDP, but also in terms of decreasing poverty. Of course there's still poverty, but it's less, it has decreased. So yeah, I've seen kind of business cycles over the years, and I see that Argentina and Argentinians are quite resilient and deal quite well with the crisis. But there are countries, particularly in Asia, that do very well in both economic development and social development. China not. China is just doing well in economic growth, but more unequal. But countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam are doing much better on both scores. So I think there are lessons to be learned from the development expertise of these countries.